Hello and welcome to the Night Feed. I'm your host, Charlotte, here to bring you some comfort, camaraderie, and conversation and keep you company during, let's face it, one of the toughest parts of being a new parent, the Night Feed. Tonight's unpaid sponsor is Just You Wait. Just you wait till they start crawling. Just you wait till you naive, happy parent. Isn't that how it feels? If I had £1 for every just you bloody wait, I would be a multimillionaire. I was having a chat with somebody the other day and they were asking how he's been sleeping. And I said, you know what, actually, last night he did a 3-hour stretch and I feel great. And the response to that was, just you wait till he starts teething. I was like, do we have to do that now? Really? I've had a 3-hour straight stretch of sleep and I feel good. Do we have to go into the teething conversation? But we did. We went there. And it just made me laugh because it's almost like training to be an athlete, like a runner. And you train for a year and you hit your PB and you tell someone, yesterday I hit my PB, and they go, just you wait till you break that ankle. So if you're getting a lot of just you waits, well, I'll tell you, just you wait till it gets even better, because it does. Every stage is a lovely new milestone and magical things are coming your way. I thought this week that, given this is the night feed, I'd share what my night feeds are looking like at the moment with an 8-week-old. And this time around, I am a third-time parent. So it's safe to say I've been through this and I've learned a lot of things about the night feeds. And I feel like the last couple of weeks, I'm in a bit of a rhythm. And I know when I talk about this and it's going well, I jinx it. So this is for your benefit, not mine. But basically, what I've decided to do this time round is bed share. So I'm co-sleeping with him. We have the next to me beside the bed. And my intention really was to start off as I mean to go on with putting him in the next to me. However, as we know, newborns don't really like being put down on a cold, hard mattress. So I decided to co-sleep, and I followed all the safe sleep guidelines like I did with my previous two. And you know what? It's been great for me personally. He feeds and tends to go back to sleep. Don't get me wrong, there's been a few nights where we've been up for 2-hour windows, some nights when he's got wind that he just can't move. But on the whole, I've found that the less I disturb him, the better. And what I've been doing is just leaving him to lie on the mattress while he feeds, safely, of course, and not moving him as much as I can. And I find that this prevents the hiccups and the wind that I was getting when I was moving him around and patting him. And because I think with breastfed babies, you don't always have to win them. And I've found with him, the less I move him, the less we jiggle around, the longer stretches he goes. And that's been really working for me at the moment personally. When I started co-sleeping with my first, I read all the 7 steps to safe sleeping, which you can find on the Lullaby Trust website. And I'll include that in the show notes because I know there is a big shift in the conversation around co-sleeping at the moment. I think it was always perceived as very dangerous and a big no-go in Western cultures. I know in Eastern cultures, it's a lot more common. But in the West, it's very much like, you cannot do that. That is very dangerous. And I think it's dangerous, this narrative, because what tends to happen and what I've seen is that newborns will struggle to go down. So what happens is the mother or the father will end up holding them and trying to stay awake because they're scared to fall asleep with the baby and they don't know how to sleep safely with the baby. But I think the more we educate ourselves as new parents on co-sleeping, if that is how we intend to go ahead with things, the safer it is. And then last night, I decided at 8 weeks, I do want to start bringing the next to me into things again and trying to get him in there, because in all honesty, I do sleep better when he's in there. I know he's safe. I know there's no risk of the duvet going near him or so last night I actually put him in the next to me, and he did a 3-hour stretch at one point, which is huge for me. And yeah, I think you have to do what works for you. But at the moment, what's working is co-sleeping with a view to getting him back in his next to me and getting that routine where he's back in his own little bed so we can have our bed and kind of relax a bit more. Because I think when you co-sleep, I love it. I find it wonderful being that close to the baby. I do enjoy hearing them and feeling them. But there's always an underlying anxiety, of course there is, that you don't properly switch off. Even though you're getting, in my view, better sleep because you're not physically sitting up, feeding and winding and patting and changing. It's more of like a constant slumber, if you like. It still can be, anxiety inducing. So it's whatever works for you, but that is currently what we're doing. And so far it's working. So we'll see. This morning, it's the summer holidays, obviously. And of course it was absolutely pouring down. So we were playing with puzzles and whatever. And I thought, you know what? I need to feed the baby. Let's put something on. And I thought, I'm going to put something on that I want to watch. So we put The Wizard of Oz on. I thought, I'm sick of the Smurfs and Peter Rabbit. And long-time listeners will know that The Wizard of Oz is one of my all-time favourites. And I skipped the witch bit because I don't want any nightmare fodder at the moment. They're both sleeping through. We don't need any witch visiting in the night, if you get what I'm saying. So I thought, right, we'll put The Wizard of Oz on. We'll just skip the witch. They've only seen it a handful of times, and I've always skipped it, apart from one time when my eldest saw the witch in the cyclone, and it's still like sepia, and they're up in the sky, and the witch flies past. I thought, I've got away with it. So I'll say, well, watch The Wizard of Oz. We all sat down, and the cyclone happens, and I skipped that bit because my youngest girl, my middle child, she's not seen that bit. Oh my Lord, the kickoff we had when I dared to skip the witch. My oldest was like, oh, you're skipping it. I want to see the witch. The witch is there. And I'm like, well, it's a bit unsuitable for your sister. Oh, she calls her Baba. So she calls my middle child Baba. She goes, oh, Baba, you like the witch, don't you? You like the witch. My middle child's like, yeah, I like the witch, Mummy. Put the witch on. I'm like, oh my goodness, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I'm like, I'm trying to protect you here, kids. So we managed to I let them watch that witch. And then obviously the witch in Oz, I used to find her scary, even though it's my favourite film. Up until a certain age, of course, and then it was the child catcher and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang that terrified me. And you can't protect them forever. You can't protect them forever, and they're going to see things that do creep them a bit. But at the moment, while we've got a newborn and they're sleeping quite well at night, we don't need any, nightmare-inducing characters and villains. But I wanted to share actually a lovely moment that we had last night with you brand new mums who are maybe in the trenches right now, in the thick of it, and thinking, tell me this gets easier. So I was at my mum and dad's yesterday with the 3 children, and I left Jason to have a bit of time because we've been kind of giving each other a bit of time to ourselves because it's so precious when you get a minute. And my mum invited us over. I thought, yeah, they help me and then Jason can have a rest. So anyway, we were at my mum's. And on the way home, I always tend to put them in their pajamas so they fall asleep and we carry them up. But my eldest stayed awake, and we pulled up and Jason come out. He says, we've got a little surprise in the garden for you. And I didn't know what this was. So I was like, all right, okay. And I took our middle daughter to bed, brought the baby in, and Jason says, come with me to the garden. And there on the lawn was this beautiful playhouse that he'd put up. We've been talking about getting them on for the summer, and he'd gone out yesterday and got it. And oh my goodness, the magic in her eyes just was something to behold. You can imagine as a 4-year-old little girl seeing a brand new playhouse on your lawn. And the joy, she just ran to it. And it was such a special moment because with a newborn and a 3-year-old, well, just turned 3-year-old, you can imagine that she's not been getting as much attention as she would. She's been great. We have had mood swings. We have had tantrums here and there. So she is missing out on that quality time with us. And she went out and we just played and played with her. And it was the most wonderful evening. We let routine go out the window. We didn't worry about bedtime. I think we were in the garden till about 10. And it was still quite light. And she turned it into a cafe. She was making us food. And it was just one of those moments that you'll go back to and you'll just think, I want to be there again. And I thought I'd share that with you because when you've got a newborn or a baby, it's all about routine, isn't it? And it's all about, what wake windows do we have and when do we put them down? And I think when they get to a certain age, you can enjoy the odd night here and there like that, because there's some of my best childhood memories when routine went out the window and it was the summer and we did things that we stayed up late and me and Jason were just soaking it in. It was just such a moment to behold. And then a bat flew over the garden, which just added to the night, really. If you are in the thick of it and you are really kind of struggling, or if you're not and you're just so strict with your routine, know that sometimes it's okay for that to go out the window because you don't get this time back. That's what Jason said. He was like, we're not going to get these precious years again, are we? And it's just being in the moment and knowing that going off routine, going out of kilter isn't going to cause any harm. And sometimes they're the best moments. Okay, on to the emails. First one says, hi Charlotte, I've just started listening to the pod in the night when I'm up as a first-time mum. It's given me comfort knowing that we're all going through this exhaustion. I want to ask about routine and whether I'm doing this right. I have a 1-month-old at home and our routine is diaper change, feed every 2 to 3 hours, burp, sleep, repeat. She really doesn't stay asleep long, probably an hour until she wakes, and then I contact nap. Is this okay? Older generation keeps telling me not to do that, but she's looking for comfort and I want to. If she's awake and I need to get things done, then I use the swing. I think this is such a beautiful time, but I also miss sleeping. Can you help? Okay. With my first, this made me think about this, your email. I had a note in my notes app. I would track, I think for a good few months, I would track when she slept, when she ate, what side boob she had, what her nappy was like, what time she woke, how long she napped for. And it was exhausting because I was getting quite scientific with it. So that went out the window. And now with my third baby, there is no routine, like nothing. The poor little thing goes down for a nap and one of his sisters decides to hug him. He's awake. And his feeds, I'll sit down to breastfeed and one of them will need something. And if Jason's not around at that point, you have to get up like a jack in the box. So he is well and truly going with the flow. And when you're a first-time mum, it is very easy to fall into that trap of being very scientific with everything and worrying that if you miss a nap, they're going to be overtired. If you miss a feed, this is going to happen. And if the nappy isn't this colour, it's this. And the most liberating thing I've done as a parent is with our third, let him go with the flow and touch wood. He's quite a decent sleeper. And I think it's because of the noise around him. I'll put him down. We have one of those docker tots and he sleeps on that in the day. And I'll hoover around him. The other day I was doing the dishwasher in the kitchen and he was sleeping on the table and on his cushion and he didn't flinch. And it's like, oh my God, you couldn't hear a pin drop with the first. So I wouldn't worry about your routine. Your routine to me sounds completely normal. You know, they feed, they nappy change, they win, they sleep. Every baby's different. You might have a friend whose baby doesn't sleep. You might have a friend whose baby sleeps every hour. Every baby is different. And the more you get engrossed with, am I doing this right? You'll find flaws. Like I said, with our third, he well and truly goes with our flow because he has to. And in September, we're going to be back at school. My eldest is starting in reception. So there's not going to be a set routine that we have for the baby because it's going to be the girls' routine more. As for contact napping, block out that noise on it. You're making a rod for your own back. You're spoiling them. I hate it when people say you're spoiling the baby. You're making a rod for your own back. They'll never sleep if you do that. Trust me. I contact nap with both my eldest girls and they sleep fine. They're not going to contact nap on your chest when they're 6. And I know it's a pain when you need to get things done and they're on you and they won't contact nap. We spoke about babies that only want to sleep on you on the podcast before, but I think in all honesty, other people around you should understand that you've got a brand new baby. They're not always going to sleep when you want them to. They're not always going to sleep when you've got people coming around. In fact, the days when you've got something busy on and you need to clean and someone's coming is the day they choose to not nap alone without you. And you have to not worry and not let it bother you. And the older generation do say that, don't they? I've had it from various people. Oh, you can't feed them to sleep because then they won't get to sleep, and you can't contact nap because they'll never nap alone. I contact nap a lot with our youngest, with our new baby, because Jason's at home. So he's been having the girls a lot, and I've been able to breastfeed, put my feet up like I did with my first, and let him sleep on my chest. And I soak it in because this might be our last baby. And you're holding them like, oh my God, I just want to drink this in. And I'm not worried, like, oh, if I contact nap with him now, he won't go down because he's next to me right now on his docker top, having a lovely old sleep while I'm doing the podcast. So just really don't beat yourself up. You sound like you're doing a wonderful job. And if you don't agree with opinions, you just have to ride them out and be polite and say, yeah, fine. I'm just always like, oh, I know what you mean. Oh, yeah. I'm very agreeable and don't like confrontation. So I'll never turn around to someone and say, well, that's not my parenting style. I'm just like, yeah, I know what you mean. And I just proceed to do what I want because I know as a mum of 3 that you are not going to spoil them and you are not making a rod for your own back. So you do you. I hope that helps. This next one I actually found in a forum and it kind of links to your email. So I thought I'd share it and see what you think. And it says, does criticism against new mums come sometimes from regret? So the post says, I don't know if it's just me, but this is a thought I had recently after a conversation with my mother-in-law. She low-key criticises things we do. Yesterday, she asked in a nice way, how is my baby going to learn to sleep on his own if I feed him to sleep? Here we go, just what we were speaking about. I said sleep is developmental and he will learn just as every human has done through our history as species. Then, in a not so nice way, she said that my house is messier than hers was because I don't put the baby down enough. And I said I will never regret the mess, but I'll miss being able to hold my baby when he's older. Great response. Later that day, she came to me and said she was sad and feeling guilty because back when her children were babies, she had so much pressure to keep her house tidy and that she prioritised this instead of holding her babies more. And now she thinks she should have held them more. And it's a conversation that had me wondering if the criticism new mums get sometimes stems from a place of feeling that they should have done things differently. I was very surprised at her confession. And I'm absolutely certain this doesn't apply to the majority of cases. But I've wondered if this is the case when we do get criticised as new mums in this generation. And I saw this after I read your email. I thought I have to share that because I wonder if there is a little bit of guilt. Because back in the day, maybe there was a bit more pressure around housewives and stay-at-home mums, that if you're going to be at home with your babies, you run a tight ship. It needs to be clean. It needs to be hoovered. Leave the baby in the bassinet to cry it out. You've got to hoover, and you've got to make that house spotless when your husband returns home. And we don't have that narrative anymore. I think we're all waking up to the fact that these early years are so precious, not just for the mum, but for the baby as well. And having a tidy house is an afterthought for a lot of mums now. Don't get me wrong, we don't like to live in a awful mess, but being in the moment and soaking it in and enjoying the contact naps is a narrative that is pushed a lot more now to us mums. Maybe there's also an element of resentment in that on paper, they may think we have it easier in terms of modern technology, dishwasher, tumble dryer. We have disposable nappies, we get maternity and paternity leave. So maybe there's an element of what you're moaning at. You've got it easier. Back in our day, we were hand washing nappies. We didn't have washing machines. We didn't have tumble dryers. We didn't have the technology. We didn't have the research telling us what to do. So there could be a little bit of resentment there. And like I said, maybe it's also a regret that they did listen to the older generation who were very much children are seen, not heard. If your baby's crying in the bassinet, you crack on with the hoovering, girl. It's like we are completely different. And maybe for them to see us as mothers slow down and lean into the contact naps and lean into the feeding to sleep and let the babies kind of have their routine that we follow a bit more, makes them reflect on how they parented. And it's an interesting discussion because I think modern day mothers now are in a completely different boat. A lot of modern mums work. I know I was chatting to some girls in the US. We're talking about maternity leave there. And I know I have a lot of listeners in the US, and it's completely different. It's like 3 months if you're lucky with some places. Whereas over here, it's generally 9 months plus. Up to a year tends to be the norm, what people take. I've got Jason at home for a few months on his paternity leave. So it's completely different. And I think a lot of mums have to go back to work. So they want to enjoy the maternity leave. They want to enjoy the contact naps. They want to enjoy it and have a bit of a messy house. You've got a brand new baby. So I just thought it was interesting. And I'd love to hear your take on whether you think there is a slight resentment in how we parent now and the differences. So email me, thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. And then I also saw this post in a forum as well. And it says, to the stay-at-home mums, you are all super women and I don't know how you do it. It says, I just wanted to hop on here and say to any stay-at-home mums who might be here or feeling down, overwhelmed, that you are genuinely superhuman. I'm well-resourced and very fortunate to have the help that I do, and I'm currently on maternity leave with my 10-week-old. As I type this, there are 3 women at my house fully working their arses off. Me with a newborn pumping and throwing a dinner in the crock pot. Our nanny with my feral sick toddler, and our cleaning lady cleaning up the absolute destruction in our wake. As all 3 of us are maxed out, busy, and I'm finding myself thinking of all the women somehow managing to do this on their own. I do not know how you mums at home by yourselves do it. That's all in capital letters, by the way. You deserve everything the world has to offer you and more. I'm an attorney specialising in highly complex litigation, and it is a literal walk in the park compared to this. Well, there you go. So mums on maternity leave and mums that are stay-at-home mums that feel like you shouldn't find it hard because you're at home. How can you moan? There you go. That's from a highly complex litigation attorney. So it's funny actually when I read this as well, because it made me think of our current situation. Jason's off at the moment and he has a couple of months, which is wonderful. And it honestly helps me so much. And he even said the other day, I totally get now when people say they go to work for a break. He was like, it is constant, isn't it? is like I feel like I'm running a cafe because it's like it's constant demands that need meeting. We've got a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 8-week-old, and they all have very different needs, very different wants and complex needs. And it's kind of like, you don't stop. And I love it. I love being a stay-at-home mom. Like, it's my dream in a way. Like, I still have my business to a point, and I work really hard to set up my business. And it has scaled down a lot recently, and it is a sacrifice I've had to make that other mums may not want to make, and that's totally fine. I have friends that love what they do and can't wait to go back to work. But in my case, I just love being mum. But it doesn't mean to say that there aren't days when I'm totally overwhelmed. And I had this conversation with Jason when he was in work. It's been really tough today. And I suppose to your partner at work who is in an office doing a difficult job, it can seem like, well, you've been to a play centre in the park and it sounds like you've seen your friends, and we maybe stay-at-home mums kind of have a blessed life that we can put a film on if we want in the middle of the day and chill with the kids. But as this person in this forum has laid out, it isn't sunshine and roses all the time, is it? And it is extremely constant. Even if you have one newborn, they don't just sleep, do they? People say, oh, they just sleep and they're just still. But what about the feeding? Whether you're breastfeeding or you're bottle feeding, what about the changing? What about the wakes? What about the, rocking to sleep? What about the winding? There's so much. And yeah, I think it's just important to recognise that, whether you're a stay-at-home mum or you're a working mum that balances her home as well, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. And actually, my friend the other day was saying her kids are in nursery, and she was saying that's the break when I go to work. And she has a difficult job, but she was saying that's the break. That's when I have me time. And I said this to Jason as well. I was like, yeah, when you go to work, you can go and get your lunch, pick what you want, go and have a coffee, go to the loo by yourself. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts really, and it's whatever makes you happy. But I just thought that post was quite interesting, and it's a good way of seeing things. 3 women all maxed out with a toddler and a newborn. There are single mums out there, aren't there, doing it on their own. Even mums with a partner who works is still difficult. So here's to you all. No matter what situation you're in, you're doing great. Next night is what's trending. I came across this post and it absolutely infuriated me. I imagine, well, you may have seen it, especially if you're in the UK. So there's a clothes designer called Karen Millen. And I don't know what tree she's barking up, getting on the breastfeeding bandwagon and going on this morning, which is a daytime programme if you're not from the UK, to discuss breastfeeding. And I saw this clip, and at first I genuinely thought it was AI, because you get all these clickbait AI videos now, don't you, that are really controversial. Her words in this clip, she's been interviewed about breastfeeding, and she says, there is no benefit to breastfeeding a child past 6 months, really, are there? I actually think it's quite selfish. What in the hell's bells is that about? I was blown away. I thought, surely that's not real. How can the producers allow that kind of conversation to happen? I think there's no shade to however you feed. And I think whether you breastfeed or bottle feed, you're doing what's right for you and your baby. But to state that there is no benefit to breastfeeding past 6 months is actually factually incorrect. We know there are benefits to breastfeeding. We know that that antibodies are created to help your baby. We know that there are links to it preventing breast cancer even. There are so many benefits. And I know not everybody can breastfeed, whether that's personal choice or whether that's because you physically can't. I've talked about on the podcast before friends of mine that wanted to and couldn't. I've talked about friends of mine that never wanted to and just bottle fed. And I've talked about friends that exclusively breastfeed. And no matter what you do for your baby, this podcast is a safe place. You know, I was just infuriated by the fact that this woman, who isn't a medical professional, she designs clothes, was coming onto a very large platform that should be more responsible, in my opinion, and saying there is no benefit past 6 months and it's selfish. How on earth is it selfish? When you breastfeed, you are kind of giving up your body till you finish. Not completely, but you know, you need to eat the right things. You can't really drink as you can drink. And don't get me wrong, I had my first glass of wine the other day, actually. You can have a glass of wine here and there as long as you're not like drunk. But you can't eat certain things, you can't have certain things, you have to be on your baby's schedule. I don't really think there's anything selfish about breastfeeding. I think it's selfless, if anything. And I know some people don't want to give it up, and equally I don't think that's a bad thing either. So for someone to go on a platform like that, and whether she's trying to be cancelled, I don't know. Whether she's trying to defend bottle feeding, maybe, which, to be fair, can get a bad rap. And I think no matter how you choose to feed your baby, they're getting fed, and that is important. And I know that breastfeeding can cause mental health issues with some women, and switching to bottle is best for you and the baby because, you know, you can't be in a bad place because of breastfeeding. So there is a lot of sensitivity around how babies are fed. And I think for someone to go on to a platform like that and make a really broad, sweeping claim that is obviously going to trend on social media is highly irresponsible from her and the producers of that programme. I don't know if you've seen it, but, you know, in the UK, we have the lowest breastfeeding rate in the world. And clips like that are not going to help. So what are your thoughts? Did you see it? Email me, thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. Finally, my self-care suggestion this evening is to quit the mum guilt. I saw this TikTok video the other day and it came right at the right time because I was just running a bath. And when you're breastfeeding, having half an hour to an hour is like, it's golden window, isn't it? And I don't know why, but I think most of us mums feel a bit of guilt, like, oh, we shouldn't be having this self-care right now. Like, I should be feeding the baby, it should be with the girls. Oh, are they going to be okay? Like, you know, is he going to want to feed as soon as they get in? And then I saw this video and it was from a fellow new mum, and she was also breastfeeding, and she said, I've got my mother-in-law staying and I'm out now having a coffee. And I just want to share this video with any new mums. It's okay to have time to yourself without the guilt. She was like, drop the guilt. Go and have the bath, go and have the coffee, go for the walk. Because if you don't do things for yourself because you feel guilty, you will spiral. And there comes a point where you can't just be permanently attached to the baby. You have to have that minute. So then I went and enjoyed that bath for a good hour. I was like fully raisin. I was like, this is going to be the best bath. I'm going to love it. And when I got out, he did need a feed, but he was fine. He was with Jason. Jason was comforting him. He was absolutely fine with his dad. There was no panic. There was no need for me to run down the stairs. So yeah, enjoy the bath or the walk or whatever you need to do for yourself without the guilt. Thanks for listening this evening. I hope you've all enjoyed the podcast. Please keep your emails coming in, thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. And you can also follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and let me know any thoughts you have, any stories you have, any concerns you have, or any improvements for the podcast. I'd love to hear them. And I wish you all a restful, peaceful night ahead. Good night.